We rarely think about soil, but without it, almost nothing survives. Coming up, the often unseen creatures that help regulate the planet's health.
微生物の力とかたくさんいろんなものが
Then from the ground to inside us, we explore the hidden world of the human gut and how rising heat might be changing it.
With heat stress, we may consume more water, and in many locations, this water could be contaminated with enteric pathogens.
And new research shows children swap gut microbes on the nursery playground.
I do think this research hints that exposure to other babies does speed up your accumulation of new species of bacteria in the gut.
Plus an undercover investigation inside a Los Angeles slaughterhouse where hidden cameras capture what most consumers never see.
Get this cruelty out of town!
Just 2 degrees is on. Now,
what did you see happening there? I mean, how bad was it really?
It was honestly one of the bloodiest and goriest investigations that we've ever done.
What if we start the day singing? Fresh hearts are smiling alright, finding our way to dancing, morning light in the bright star.
when we think about global warming, we often look up to the sky, the heat, and the atmosphere above us.
But one of the most important climate systems on Earth is much closer than we think, actually right beneath our feet. It may look like dirt, but soil's got a life of its own.
A single teaspoon of soil contains billions of bacteria, fungi, and tiny crawling organisms, an entire ecosystem hidden in plain sight.
微生物の力とかたくさんいろんなものが自然のものでできていて、でそれが1センチ作るのに100年かかるって言われている。
Together, these microorganisms do the work that keeps life going, cycling nutrients, storing carbon, and growing the food we eat. And that matters, because soil underpins almost everything. First, it feeds us. Nearly 95% of our food depends on soil, either directly through crops or indirectly through the animals we raise. Second, it manages water. Healthy soil absorbs rain like a sponge, slowing floods when rain is heavy and holding moisture when drought sets in. And third, it locks away carbon. In fact, soils store more carbon than the atmosphere and all vegetation combined. But this balance didn't break overnight. Decades of intensive farming, deep ploughing, monocultures and chemical inputs have steadily stripped life from soils around the world. The result's been erosion, declining fertility, and carbon leaking back into the atmosphere.
Au niveau des racines des arbres, ils vont être mises à nu. Et donc les arbres, à force, ils vont plus avoir accès aux nutriments et à l'eau qu'on va avoir dans le sol, donc ils peuvent dépérir.
And once soil structure is lost, the system above it begins to fail. That's where regenerative farming comes in. Instead of fighting nature, it works with it, using cover crops, rotating fields, reducing tillage, and keeping living roots in the ground for longer. The aim isn't quick yield, but long-term recovery. Healthier soil can mean healthier crops, more resilient farms, and land that pulls carbon out of the air instead of releasing it.
We're trying to take the soils that we tilled for a lot of years from the condition that it is right in now, turning it back into a thriving living soil, feeding microbes, getting earthworms back into the system, and just letting the soil do the growing part and looking after the crop instead of us fighting against Mother Nature.
Because soil connects to everything, from the microbes in our food to the health of our gut and the stability of the climate itself. When soil breaks down, systems break down with it. But when soil recovers, it offers something rare in the climate story: restoration.
So we talk a lot about how global warming alters land and ocean ecosystems, but there's another system it might be reshaping as well, one inside all of us. It's called the gut microbiome. Trillions of bacteria, fungi, tiny organisms that live in our digestive tract and help keep us healthy.
Scientists have long known our microbiome influences digestion, immunity, and even mood. Now, new research suggests that global warming could be altering our internal ecosystem in a variety of surprising ways.
It's really, really hot.
As the planet heats up, the food we eat changes, not just the crops we grow, but how much nutrition they deliver. Shifts in temperature, atmospheric carbon dioxide, droughts and heat waves can affect plant growth and the balance of nutrients humans and animals get from their diets. And diet is one of the strongest drivers of what inhabits our gut. Climate change also shifts the environmental microbiomes, the invisible communities in soil, water, and even the food we eat. Those environmental microbes help seed our own microbiomes, especially early in life.
Nature knows what we should be eating, so that is how it grows. Like carrot grows in the winter season because we're supposed to have carrot during the winters.
When climate alters those reservoirs, it can change what ends up inside us. And indeed, heat stress may play a direct role. Higher temperatures can change our physiology, raising stress hormone levels and increasing gut permeability, which in turn allows different microbes or toxins deeper inside the body than usual.
Heat stress causes more stress hormones to be synthesized by our bodies, and that affects gut permeability. So basically the gut, our gut becomes more leakier, and that allows more oxygen to come into the gut, which is not good for beneficial bacteria.
The result is a shift in the balance of gut microbes, sometimes called dysbiosis, a disruption linked in other studies to inflammation, metabolic problems, immune disruption, and even conditions like obesity and digestive illnesses. That occurs most commonly when food quality or access is compromised. Importantly, researchers say these changes won't hit everyone equally. Populations in low and middle income countries where climate impacts on food systems, disease exposure and heat stress are often greater and mitigation is weaker, may face disproportionate impacts on microbiome health.
With heat stress, we may consume more water, and in many locations, many communities, this water could be contaminated with enteric pathogens. And especially climate change may increase the concentrations of those enteric pathogens. And so imagine you drink more water to cope with this heat stress, and you're ingesting more enteric pathogens that then will proliferate, increase in abundance in your gut, and that changes the whole gut microbiome.
The research is still in its early stages, and scientists are calling for more work to understand exactly how warming temperatures and shifting environments ripple inside us. But one thing is clear: as the world warms, the invisible world inside us may be changing too, and that's something we're only just beginning to understand.
Based on your study, global warming could affect our gut microbes in theory. Have you identified any real-world signs in human populations today?
Yeah, this is an important question because it touches upon this general problem of attributing changes to climate change directly. And because climate change affects so many different things, and for example, heat waves, are they occurring due to climate change only, or is just some weather patterns? And it could be both. But there are more and more studies that showing that, for example, heat waves are a direct consequence of climate change. And there are studies that show that heat waves can negatively affect human gut microbiota because of the direct effects on human body through synthesis of stress hormones that change gut functioning, and also heat waves can deteriorate the quality of our diets.
If someone's gut microbiome is disrupted by heat stress or poor nutrition linked to the climate crisis, can it recover?
Yeah, it's a good question because so there are different states in our gut microbiomes. There is a healthy state. There is basically a spectrum of conditions that can affect the state and can shift our microbiota into a dysbiotic or basically a diseased state. And sometimes these states can be really resistant to change. So if we have basically our system, our gut is shifted to this dysbiotic diseased state with prevalence of pathogenic or non-beneficial bacteria, then sometimes it really takes a lot of effort to shift the system back into a healthy state. So even if you remove the effects of climate change, you may have the system, the gut, stuck in that bad state. And so there are various ways to sort of to prevent that or to remedy that. And sometimes you have to like really clean the slate. So you have to wipe the bad microbes and start anew. You could seed things like our gut with beneficial microbes. So it's a tricky question. Sometimes if you remove the effects of climate change, the gut can recover fast. And it happens a lot with antibiotics. If you stop taking antibiotics, gut for the most part recovers.
What you just said reminds me of people quite often consuming foods that can tackle what they call free radicals. Can you recommend a food or two that will help us, or rather help our gut microbiome recover from climate-related stresses?
Basically, foods that are rich with antioxidants, and it's a lot of fruits and vegetables that are chock full of antioxidants. So they could neutralize these free radicals. But so the problem is that climate change may affect the nutritional quality of our fruit and vegetables. And so they can have lower concentrations of those antioxidants. And so then even if you're consuming a lot of those fruit and vegetables, then you may not get enough antioxidants.
A question for you on inequalities. If people in wealthier countries are the ones who can afford more diverse diet,
do you see implications for widening global health inequalities?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mentioned in my review. So it seems sort of obvious that in wealthier countries, there's probably not going to be any significant food shortage or a change in the diversity of diet. And that could really offset the effects of climate change on our gut microbiomes. In low to middle income countries, the problem I think may be more acute. And it's not only because food availability and food diversity would be more strongly affected by climate change, but also there are other aspects of the climate change effects on gut microbiota that are more pronounced in those countries, like low to middle income countries. For example, the prevalence of enteric pathogens or being subjected to heat stress. I think all these stressors would be more acute in the same countries that would experience, either food shortages or decrease in diet diversity. So these different factors may act synergistically. And so that could really enhance the negative effects of climate change.
So global warming can disrupt the gut microbiome, but it turns out it doesn't take a heat wave to reshape it.
A new Nature article shows that when babies start nursery, their gut microbes can change fast, sometimes within weeks. And it's not food or adults driving it, but other babies. So what does this mean for parents? Should you think differently about hygiene, illness, and early childcare? I called up the article's author, Chris Sims, to walk us through what the science says and what it still can't answer.
Research shows that the nursery reshapes a baby's gut microbiome very quickly, but parents often associate nursery with constant colds and bugs. Yet are early infections actually part of how the microbiome matures?
That's a very interesting question. I think it's fair to say that all the interactions you have with the microbes from other people help to shape both your immune system, which will attempt to deal with these early infections, and your gut microbiome, especially given that the gut microbiome and the immune system are integrally linked, because bacteria in the gut release chemicals that can affect and shape how the immune system responds.
What does the research say to parents who worry about hygiene? Is there a risk we're over-sanitizing early childhood environments?
Well, another very good question. First, I think I'll say that the hygiene hypothesis, the idea that We're keeping houses too clean and it's leading to various allergies and immune conditions. It's gradually losing support. There are other things that people are looking at and saying they're the reasons people might develop these conditions, often through a lack of exposure to different foods in the diet when people are very young. So I don't think we should be scared of keeping houses or work conditions hygienic. But I do think this research hints that exposure to other babies and a range of environments and foods does speed up your accumulation of new species of bacteria in the gut, which may well be a good thing in the long run because your body's exposed to possible threats early and it learns how to deal with them. And something that I found absolutely fascinating about this study was that apart from showing that the microbiome of various babies are being passed to each other and being passed to their parents, and so a mother might pass it to their child, who pass it to another child, who pass it to their parents, that some of the children were also catching various bacteria from pets within the house, particularly dogs. Adults weren't doing this, probably mainly because the children tend to roll around with pets and might have a closer, more intimate relationship with them. But that aspect I thought was absolutely fascinating.
What about babies with weaker immune systems or those born by C-section? Do they respond differently to nursery exposure than others?
The study didn't look at people with weaker immune systems, but it did include people born by a variety of methods. And all the babies rapidly receive new bacterial strains from each other. When it comes to C-sections, babies born that way do miss out on a dose of bacteria from the birth canal when they're born, but they catch up fairly quickly after that. So there's not much of a difference in their microbiomes after a while.
Chris, is there any evidence that starting nursery earlier or later has lasting effects on gut health? Is timing relevant at all?
At the moment, we don't know because this is the first study that's been able to properly examine the gut microbiome in children of that age. It's incredibly difficult to do that kind of study with small children and manage to include controls and treat them all in different ways. It also didn't compare children of different ages. I think the mean age was 10 months, but it was all children joining the same class, so they're all roughly the same age. So we don't know if starting earlier or later makes much of a difference. I think you also mentioned lasting effects on gut health. Again, this study only lasted for a year, but the fact that the bacteria were still there, that they'd accumulated at the beginning, at the end of the year, implies they might well stick around for longer.
So if you were speaking directly to parents watching this, what's the one thing you wouldn't want them to worry about based on this research, and maybe the one thing you think science still needs to understand better?
I'd say don't worry too much about small children catching bugs from each other. It's going to happen. And in the vast majority of cases, this will lead to a strengthening of their immune system and hopefully will set them up for a healthier life. Things that science needs to understand better. I think we're still at such an early stage with this research. Anything we find out about it would be good.
It's time for Just to Matter, where the little things tell us something much bigger about the climate. And today, that little thing is something you and I use about 20,000 times a day: our lungs.
Most of us think lungs move oxygen in and out, but they're actually one of the body's most important defense systems. Every breath brings in oxygen, the good stuff, and the bad: smoke, dust, pollen, pollution. But your lungs decide what stays and what doesn't. The airways inside our lungs are lined with sticky mucus and tiny moving hairs called cilia. Think of it like a conveyor belt. Dirty air comes in, particles get trapped, and the cilia slowly push that gunk back up to be coughed out or swallowed. It's not glamorous, but it works. Deeper in our lungs are immune cells called macrophages. They eat pollution before it reaches your bloodstream and to protect the fragile surfaces where oxygen enters our body. But they were designed for occasional exposure, not constant dirty air. As the planet warms, our lungs are facing more wildfire smoke, worse air pollution during heat waves, longer pollen seasons, and more dust in drier regions. Our lungs can cope to a point. When the workload becomes too much, breathing problems spike, especially for children, the elderly, and people with asthma. Our lungs evolved over generations for nature, not for a world where smoky skies are becoming normal. They are incredible, but they're not invincible.
Before I leave you, there was a small gathering in Los Angeles in late January against the auction of a cattle slaughterhouse. Take a look.
Close it down! Get this cruelty out of town!
I'm Ben Williamson. I'm the Executive Director of Animal Outlook. And we're here today to let prospective buyers of Manning beef know that if they want to keep slaughtering animals at that facility, they'll have a lot of people who don't like the idea of continuing the slaughtering business in Pico Rivera. Animal Outlook got involved in 2024 with our undercover investigation, but really Manning beef has been attracting animal protests and vigils for many years.
My name is Cesar Acevedo, co-director of Animal Alliance Network, part of the worldwide SAVE movement. LA Animal Save, Animal Alliance Network have held vigils there over the years, and to bear witness. It's absolutely horrific, it's terrible, the smell.
The message is quite clear. Like, the city of Pico Rivera doesn't want you there. The city wants to buy it and turn it into something that benefits the community.
The ideas we've been floating around is open space, park space, housing, or an economic development opportunity to provide better jobs.
Close it down! Get this cruelty out of town! Ban the slaughter! Close it down! Get this cruelty out of town!
We're very determined. You know, LA is a city of animal lovers. There's about a dozen people turned out today. We got megaphones, we got signs, and our message is really to let any potential buyers know, JBS or Tyson, anyone who wants to come into LA and use Manning beef as an ongoing concern and continue slaughtering animals there, that it comes with massive public opposition. Manning beef has been the site of protests and vigils for the last 10 years. And, you know, anyone who wants to use it for something other than a public good that benefits the community is going to have us to contend with.
Ben, I've seen your organization's website, and we can't show those images on TV, but you planted an undercover worker at the facility in 2024. What did you see happening there? I mean, how bad was it really?
Yeah, it was honestly one of the bloodiest and goriest investigations that we've ever done. We found cows going to the knife while they showed signs of consciousness. We found a cow who was down to his excessively shot over 20 times with an electric rod. We sent off our footage to the USDA and actually cited Manning beef for a violation of the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act, which they've done 61 times between 2018 and 2024 for things like beating animals in the face with paddles, excessively shocking them and starving them. So it's really been a hellhole for animals. And just this week, we actually received records back from USDA who investigated them for sanitation violations in 2023 and found E. coli in meat that was destined for the National School Lunch Program. So this beef would have been going to pigs. They found leaky pipes spurting water into the carcass area. They found cockroach infestations and flies landing on meat. So it's really not just bad for animals, but bad for the local community, which has had to put up with this nuisance and the smells and the odor and the crime and the wildlife that it attracts. So it's a good job that it's shut down, and our aim is to make sure that it doesn't reopen and doesn't continue slaughtering animals, because that's the wrong business for Los Angeles.
I see Manning beef was being advertised as having, quote, a commanding position in the regional protein supply chain. What are the chances it might be sold to an organization that simply continues the horrific methods you've seen there?
Yeah, we know that that's a possibility. You know, the value of the equipment within Manning beef that's being sold as part of it might be attractive to some people who want to use that equipment to continue slaughtering animals. So it might put a price tag, but we also know the city of Pico Rivera has announced its intention to purchase Manning beef and turn it into something that better supports the community, like affordable housing, like public open spaces, like a plant-based and sustainable business hub. So, you know, the city of Pico Rivera doesn't want Manning beef in there anymore. The people of Los Angeles County don't want Manning beef there anymore. So we're really here today to let any prospective buyers know that we don't want you in Los Angeles.
I don't believe authorities in Pico Rivera have the money to purchase manning beef. What happens if they cannot?
Well, that's up to the city and that's up to the taxpayers and the use of public funds. The city of Pico Rivera has said that they'll work with whichever group wants to buy manning beef. And if they want to use it for something that's a public good, they'll work with them, as will we. You know, we just want to see an end to the slaughter. We're glad that manning beef has shut. After 100 years of being in business, it hasn't been operating since October 2024. It's so nice seeing this place that's like boarded up now. But we need to make sure that it doesn't open up. As you say, the marketing prospectus was advertising it as the only facility within 400 miles servicing this huge destination of Los Angeles for food. We want to make sure that it doesn't reopen as a slaughterhouse and opens as something that better services the community.
Ben, so behind this is, of course, a larger conversation about animal agriculture, carbon and methane emissions, and, of course, human cruelty. Are Californians sympathetic to this issue?
But California has always been a leader in animal welfare. We passed the Proposition 12 several years ago, which is the highest farm animal welfare standards in the world. Gets rid of cages, gets rid of veal crates, gets rid of sow stalls. But we're constantly seeing that challenge by the federal government, by pork producers in other states. So, you know, California's voice deserves to be heard. It's the 5th largest economy in the world and an enormous consumer power. And we have the power to shape what happens in the national and also the global markets.
Ben, I wish you and the team best of luck. Please keep us informed of what happens. Thanks so much for your time.
Appreciate the interest. Thanks so much.
And that's our show. So there is so much to know about the climate crisis, particularly as it relates to how global warming affects us personally. I hope something in this episode gives you a new way to think about it. Until next time, bye.